Welcome to another episode of Jay Leno's Garage. You know, we love home-built stuff here. We like American ingenuity. You know, a lot of you guys are sitting home watching TV, playing video games. There are guys in the garage actually building stuff. And this is a classic example of that. And this car has a very unique feature we're going to show you rather in just a few minutes. But let's meet the designer, JT Nesbitt. JT, come on in here. Now, JT, this is hilarious to me. Tell us why you're dressed up today.
Well, I promised my mom that if I was able to get on Jay Leno's Garage, I wouldn't look like a bum.
So that's a good Southern boy. He's from New Orleans, and you drove this car from New York to LA, and we're going to tell you what makes that different from some of the other cars that get driven cross country in just a minute. But first, I want to get into the design. It's called the Magnolia Special. Beautiful car. Now, we met before. You were the designer for Confederate motorcycles, correct?
Yeah, a long time ago.
Long time ago, okay. And this kind of came out of the depths of Katrina, didn't it, this car?
You know, after Katrina, there was, I lost everything.
Yeah.
And one of the things that really kept me going was Jay Leno's Garage.
Well, I don't know about that. But yeah.
Well, no, I'm serious. And about 3 years ago, you did a spot on the Honda Civic CNG.
Right.
And you asked a very important question.
You know, I've been a big fan of natural gas, and I don't know why it's not considered sexier.
I took that as a challenge.
Yeah.
And here's the results.
Well, that's the secret. This car was driven from New York to Los Angeles here on natural gas. You fill it up and you run it as a natural gas car. Yeah, and it is amazing to me. We're all into this lithium-ion battery thing, and we have something like, what, 600 years worth of natural gas in the ground right here.
Tons of it, tons of it.
I know T. Boone Pickens, I had him on my Tonight Show, and we talked about that. And I know that CNG Honda, which I thought was fantastic. It came out to about 75 cents a gallon. They had a home fueling system, and that company went out of business. So I don't know why more people aren't doing natural gas. And the fact that hot rodders are incorporating alternative technology, I think that's fantastic, because this car will pass emissions. I mean, you can put your hand on that tailpipe. There's no carbon. There's no.
Well, what comes out of the tailpipe is about the same as what comes when you cook your food. I mean, the emissions are basically the same as cooking a food on your stove.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Now, tell us about the design of the car itself. What made you build it this way? What did you start with? Give us the whole deal.
Well, the morphology of it is fairly simple. It's a function of its construction technique.
Yeah.
If you've ever noticed, cars that are handmade and built by individuals, they all kind of look a certain way.
Right.
And cars that are built in factories kind of look a different way.
Right.
Is it an homage to the Grand Prix cars of the 30s? Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But it's also just the easiest way to connect the dots.
Well, to me, I always like hand-formed stuff because there are curves. You know, modern cars are so angular because everything's done on a computer. But when you're sitting there pounding on a wheel and forming a fender, it's going to have a curve like this, you know. I mean, an example of the other extreme would be, I think, the new Cadillacs, the CTS-Vs.
I love that car.
I love it too, very angular, but I also like a hand-formed fender. I like the curve. This is a great design. Well, tell us how you came up with this.
What I did is I built a little casting foundry and to cast all my own parts. And I also fabricated everything else. So, you know, people get real freaked out that I am casting my own parts, but I mean, it's a technology that's only about 5,000 years old. You know, I mean, if the ancient Egyptians were doing it, how hard can it be?
That's right, exactly. Yeah, but look what happened to them. You know, so yeah, you don't want to wind up in a pyramid.
And the other thing is, man, guys were building cars like similar to this 100 years ago.
Right.
So again, how hard can it be?
Well, it has I think you're underestimating yourself because it is very hard. There are people, to me, I can't draw a curve. I know guys who can draw a French curve and go like this. You know, so I have great respect for guys like you that can make something like this.
Well, the process started about 2 years ago. And a little bit before that, after your CNG episode, I built a scale model to figure out the proportional relationships of off-the-shelf tanks.
Right.
That was very helpful in the construction and to figure out how I wanted it to look, and that scale model really helped a lot.
So tell us, now we have some footage, we have some build footage of your car, right?
Yeah, the whole log of the build out, it's just snapshots, is on my website, which is bienvillestudios.com.
Okay, spell that out.
That's Bienville studios.com.
Very cool. Now these are your, excuse me, these are your natural gas tanks on each side here?
Yeah, I've got 5 tanks total. I've
Right.
got 2 primaries, one on either side between the wheels, and then 3 more, one under each seat, and then one behind the rear differential.
So how many miles can you go on gas, natural gas?
This is a 600-mile range car.
600-mile range, okay, great. And obviously, as you said, across country, did you call ahead and find places we
Yeah, actually, that's going cross country and doing this whole trip. One of the things that are critical is the navigation.
Right.
And I'd like to introduce my navigator and co-conspirator. This is Maxwell Matern.
Hey, Max, how you doing?
Pretty good. Yeah, most of the trip I had to plan out in advance for the entire thing. What happened at one point was that a station that I called ahead to wasn't able to accommodate us, and we actually had to change the entire route of the trip. So it was kind of on the fly. We had to go around. So we went, we zigzagged across the country, but made our longest trek was about 467 miles.
But the great thing is the infrastructure is already there for natural
It
gas.
is, and that's our point. We proved
Yeah,
it.
because I remember when I was a kid and the Mercedes diesel came out in the 50s, the 190s, they would give you a big book, like this thick, of every diesel station in the United States, so you could figure, because it was hard to get at the time. You had to go out to truck stops, and a lot of truck stops wouldn't put it in a car, or whatever it was, so they had designated areas, much like natural gas is now. I mean, I see electric vehicles, and no one's driven one of those cross-country yet, at least in it hasn't taken a couple of weeks.
That's our challenge.
Yeah.
Right. We did our trip in 89 hours flat.
Right.
And I want that record to be broken immediately,
Yeah.
because it lifts all boats.
Right, exactly. But I mean, for electric cars, the infrastructure is not there yet.
No.
For natural gas cars, it is somewhat, isn't it? And how much is the equivalent gallon per se for?
It ranges anywhere from $1.20 a gallon to $2.60 a gallon.
Okay.
But it's still
Yeah, still cheaper.
dirt cheap in comparison.
Yeah. And of
And
course-
it's all domestic. It's 100% domestic and locally produced.
Right. Now tell us about those wheels. Those are nice wheels. Those,
Yeah, I had Dayton make those up for me.
Okay.
Those are the 72-spoke 5-inch rim, and those are Corky Coker's tires.
Yeah, Corky does.
Yeah,
He does all of
yeah.
our tires too. He's the best guy for that.
Boy, I love those tires.
And I recognize those wheels as well. They do a good job because you don't want to fool around with old wire wheels. That's
Right, right.
yeah.
Well, they're not that strong. Those are
Right.
72
Exactly.
swedge
Well, they
spokes.
look. You can see the thickness of these.
Yeah.
spokes. It's pretty good. Let's look under the hood and show what the engine. You might be surprised at what the engine is. Well, that looks like a 4.2 Jag. Is that correct?
You are correct, sir.
Yeah, there you are. Well, that's one of the great motors of all time, of course. First seen in the XK120 and the 140, 150, the XKE. This was the mainstay. This would be the equivalent of the small block Chevy in England.
Well, it only won Le Mans like 5 times.
Right, exactly,
so-
exactly. But one of the great motors of all time. And you've converted it to run on natural gas. Now, obviously, tell us what you had to do. I don't recognize this here. This is for cooling? What is that?
Well, you don't have to really convert a motor to run on natural gas. Any internal combustion engine will run on it.
Right.
But natural gas has an octane equivalent of 130.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to take advantage of the characteristics of that fuel, raising the compression ratio, we're 12.5 to 1.
Wow.
Camshafts, this is a very short duration, high lift torque cam. And timing advance, we're running 50 degrees advanced on this motor.
Okay.
So natural gas is an incredibly stable fuel.
Now, how about the valves, recession, that type of lubricating the valves and all that?
You know, it seems to be running okay. Last time I checked, I popped the exhaust valve cover off. The intakes were fine, and checked the clearances, and they had tightened up a little bit. But as soon as I get home, I'm going to take the head off and really have a look at it. I think it's okay because it's no lead seats.
Right.
The fuel is dry. However, it seems to be working just fine.
Oh, very good, very good. Look at come around here, look at the beautiful job they did on the suspension there.
This is the open ride suspension. It's a push rod type suspension, basically IndyCar suspension from the 50s.
Right, right. Very nicely done. 4-wheel disc brakes, obviously.
Yeah, lighting and braking, I made some modern concessions.
Right, right. And do you make these headers?
Yes, sir, sure
Boy,
do.
beautiful job. Look at the nice weld on that. And all the little detail work here.
Yeah, those are all cast
Yeah.
by me in my
Yeah.
shop.
Very nicely done. This door opens
Just
how?
lift up gently.
Look at that. I mean, nicely done. Look at the hinges here and the way this opens. Okay, you don't want Brittany getting in this thing in a skirt, but Nicely done.
Ergonomics was a big deal for me because
Yeah.
I love those Grand Prix cars from the 30s, but they're horrible things to get in and out
Yeah,
of.
especially, what are you, 6'4"?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
you're
I
not gonna
built
fit
this
in.
car for me to scale. You know, the cowling is very long here.
Right.
The seat goes way far back. I built it to be a comfortable car.
And what is the transmission?
It's a Tremec T5
Okay.
with
And
a very
that's a-
special bell housing.
Yeah, that's a great fit for this motor, isn't it? I've got
It's wonderful.
I've got one of those in my XK120. I've had it in there for almost 25 years, and it's a fantastic transmission. JT, take us through the gauges here. Show us what we have.
All right. Well, this is obviously oil pressure.
Right,
This is water temp,
Right.
speedometer, tach,
right.
clock. This is our voltmeter. This is our fuel tank status, fuel gauge. And that rascal right there is air-fuel ratio.
Oh, okay.
We have a wideband O2 sensor on the car so we can see what our air-fuel ratio is.
Oh, very good.
Now, one thing that you're going to like is none of these gauges are listed. You know, like this doesn't say, you know,
Right,
speed.
right,
This
yeah.
doesn't say RPM.
Right.
Because when I was designing the gauges, I had the clock. I mean, do you have to say time on the clock?
Yeah, I know, exactly.
You should know
You
what
should
it
know.
is.
Well, that's what, you know, that's what's kind of fun about the old Italian cars. When I get in my Miuras, they got all these overhead switches. None of them are marked.
Yeah, you
and
should
the
know.
idea is you're supposed to know.
Yeah.
But every day I get, what was this one again? Oh, that's right. I forgot. What is this here?
Our switches are actually under this piece of leather.
Oh, I see.
These are all touchpad switches.
Oh, I see.
For the horn, starter,
Oh,
left,
very
right
cool.
turn signal. And the reason why it is that way is that I wanted the car to have a very good hand, so that everything you touched was handmade. You didn't
Right.
touch any nasty plastic made in
Right.
China switches. Everything
Right.
everything has a certain feel to it.
Kind of looks like one of those Zeppelin airships. I like that sort of.
Well, it's Superleggera construction.
Yeah, Superleggera construction, which of course means extra lightweight. And where does the name Magnolia Special come from?
You know, when I was working on this car, I couldn't help but think about my grandmother.
Oh, okay.
And what she would think would be a beautiful car.
Oh, okay.
And we're from Louisiana.
Right.
You know, magnolias are
Well, it makes
sort of
sense to me.
dear to us.
Yeah, yeah, and the nice leather. Look at the leather inlay here. This is what I love. You know, a lot of guys like me, I just want to drive the thing. Oh, all right, let's get a steering wheel, put it on, let's go. But to spend all this time, all this detail work, this is what really makes it beautiful. Nicely done, and that's kind of the motorcycle influence working with the leather there, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
motorcycle guys are so detail oriented.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, that's because a motorcycle wears its engine on the outside.
Right.
You know, it's hard to design motorcycle engines because they got to look good. You know, I love my Triumph Triple, but it's not a pretty looking motor. It looks like a Ferguson tractor.
Yeah. It looks
Harley's
like
a good looking motor. Vincent's a good looking motor. You guys do the Confederate motor is very nice. S&S, but that big 3-cylinder, it just looks like a tractor.
It looks East German.
Yeah, it
Kinda
does.
Russian.
Yeah, it does. Has that Ural kind of feel to it. You know, it's really hard to make an engine good looking. That's
Well, that's
really
the thing
tricky.
about the Jaguar 4.2. It's
Yeah.
such a magnificent looking
Yeah,
thing.
it's a
isn't it?
beautiful looking motor as well, and of course very advanced for its time. But just look at all the detail here. These little, these
all
look
these-
like rivets, but they're not. They're
These are
little
all
torque screws. Yeah.
Yeah. So all the body panels actually unscrew. You don't have to cut anything apart.
Oh, very nice. No trouble with these rattling loose or anything on the trip.
No,
huh?
they all held up pretty good.
Yeah, very good. Not going to be taking a trip with the wife with this.
Well, here, I'll show you the trunk if you'd like to see it. So I made this piece of luggage here, and then this lifts off.
Yeah, I see.
Open it up.
Oh, I see. There you go. I didn't realize that was there. So you got your jack in there, and well, is this battery under here?
Yes, sir.
Boy, nicely done, and everything fits so well. So and now this obviously looks like a fuel cap, but you got a quick. I mean, it looks like a gas cap, and you got a quick connector on here. And how long does it take to fill up with natural gas?
About 10 minutes.
yeah.
It's not terribly long. There's also different styles of fill. There's the quick fill that's usually at the stations that you drive to. And then you can also, if you had one installed in your house, usually that's going to be a slow fill. So you're talking
I
about
see. Yeah, yeah.
overnight.
And it's just again, it's the same natural gas for your dryer or your stove.
Yeah, it actually smells like a hot water heater. When you're driving
Yeah.
it, you can smell it, you know?
Yeah, yeah, and that's the nice thing about it is you have a natural gas car, you can refill it at home, put it in at night and do a slow fill, 3-4 hours, something
Well,
like that.
there are several companies out there now working on home filling stations
Right.
that are remarkable. I know one set of guys is working on one that does a dump of 10 GGE, 10-gallon dump,
Right.
and then a trickle fill.
I see.
So if you
I
just
see.
need 10 gallons, boom, you can get
Yeah.
it like that.
Wow. Very nice. And what is the mixture of natural gas to air?
The air-fuel ratios can be many things.
Yeah.
You can run all the way from 10 to 1 to 18 to 1. It depends on how much efficiency you're looking for.
Now, gasoline and air is, was it 14?
14.7.
14.7, okay. What would this be average?
Well, again, it depends on,
Okay.
how much power you want to make. It's just
Right.
like your stove.
Gotcha.
When you want your stove to get hotter, you just turn it, you just
Right.
turn the knob up.
Right, gotcha. Very cool. Nicely done. Nicely done. And just spend some time on the details. The engine turn firewall. This is your oil filter right here. And I imagine with natural gas, your oil stays a lot cleaner, doesn't it?
Yeah, oil changes are every 10,000 miles.
Wow. Okay.
So you use a lot. It's a lot easier on the oil because it doesn't have any of the soot going down into.
Right.
Like when you pull a spark plug out, that rascal is clean.
Right, right. And how many miles have you done on this particular car?
We're over 5,000 miles on it now,
Okay.
and no major mechanical failures after 5,000 miles.
In the front end here, as you can see, his natural gift as a designer. That's a great looking look here. Nicely done. Kind of looks like the front of my 34 Duesenberg. It's got this same kind of, much closer together, but
Yeah,
nicely
these
done.
vanes actually channel the air
Right.
into the radiator, and man, our cooling system is, like I said, it's overly efficient.
Well, you know, the early ones, like my Packard and stuff, those vanes would turn when you thermostat until they freeze up and then they get stuck somewhere until they rust or something. But when they left the factory, they would open and close. But this is nicely done. I like that sort of fish mouth look to it there. That's kind of cool. And these headlights, what are those? Halogen, obviously?
They're
Halogen, rather?
Yeah, they're a halogen,
Halogen, yeah.
all-in-one housing, turn
Yeah,
signal
yeah.
highs and lows.
Yeah, very nice. Any cops stopped you going, hey, what is that? Did you get any of that?
Not one encounter with the police, and not one truly bad thing happened to us on the trip, except that at one point the gate was shut on one of the fuel stations. It was listed as 24 hours.
Yeah.
It was 4 a.m. in the morning in North Carolina, and we had to start a campfire to keep from freezing to death. Very H. Nelson Jackson.
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know.
very nice, very nice. And look at this little detail here. These look like little pistons, these caps on your...
Yeah, those are
The reservoirs.
Rizoma
Right,
reservoirs.
right.
That's
Right.
all motorcycle components. Actually, a lot of what we did and used was all motorcycle stuff since we're both bike guys.
And what is that steering unit?
It's a rack and pinion.
Right. I mean, is that an aftermarket or is it off a car?
It's an aftermarket, just an aftermarket rack and pinion. You could either run power steering or not have power steering.
I see, yeah.
It definitely does not need power steering.
Now, you guys took pictures along the way. Are you on Facebook?
Yeah.
How can they follow if they want to see what the trip was like?
Yeah, you can follow it at facebook.com/Bienville Studios.
Okay, very cool. So I just love this kind of American ingenuity. This is what people do when they're not playing video games and all that other nonsense. You got time to spend in your garage building cool stuff. It's just a wonderful, wonderful car. Let's take it for a spin. Although it's geared very tall, still has plenty of power. What do you figure you're getting miles per gallon equivalent?
Actually, we've done a couple of calculations that yield between 30 and 35 mpg.
Wow, that's pretty good. And you could make it, if you did want to put a 411 in it, you get some real power out of it, couldn't you? There you go. It's got that great Jag sound. Plenty of power.
Yeah.
Nice thing is, it's a good-looking car as well. You can see JT has a fine arts degree?
Fine arts degree.
See, he's got a real designer's eye. Boy, it steers wonderfully. It is kind of cool having a car you can just fill up in your garage. If you got a water heater or a gas dryer, you could run this right out of your garage. Never go to a gas station again. Did you get it hot at all coming across country?
No, it stayed right at about 180.
Yeah, so you never got it to 220.
A couple of times, man, yesterday, driving it on the 405 at 4 o'clock on Friday afternoon.
Yeah, bumper to bumper.
If it was going to break, it would have done it yesterday.
Yeah. You know, she's geared so tall, you can run in third gear all day at what, 60 miles an hour? You only turn it 2,500 RPM. And it handles wonderfully. I know you say it's 2,700 pounds, but it feels like it weighs about 1,700 pounds. And how much does natural gas weigh?
Not much.
Yeah. I mean, if it was gasoline, you'd be putting an extra, what, 200 pounds in the car, right? Yeah. Good brakes, too. See that? So you can be a hot rodder and be an alternative fuel guy and be an engineer and a designer and dressed up to please your mom and do the whole bit. So, JT, thanks a lot.
Hey, you're
This has
very
been a real thrill. If you'd like to know more about his website, give it to him again.
The website is bienvillestudios.com.
Bienvillestudios.com. Well, good to see American hot rodding going to the next level. And I love the fact that you're running on natural gas. This is a real, well thought out, intelligent product. So congratulations, my friend.
Thank you.
See you guys next week. I'm not doing a burnout because it's his car and he's got it too tall. I'll tell you what.
It won't do a burnout.
No,
it's too
but
tall.
when you put those 411s in it, bring it back, then we'll do a burnout. See you next week.